to One Talk, brought to you by Sansom Diabetes Research Institute. I'm your host, Katie Hawk, and on this show, we discuss living with diabetes and bring in experts in the field to talk about topics related to type 1, type 2, prediabetes, and gestational diabetes. We do this to bring the diabetes community together as one. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. In the comments below, let us know how we're doing. We want to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Welcome to this week's episode. Today we are going to be discussing a really challenging topic, type 1 diabetes and school issues. So we have with us an expert in the field, Kristen Nelson. Welcome to the show, Kristen.
Thank you.
And Kristen is our clinical nurse practitioner here at Sansom Diabetes Research Institute. And in her career, she's also worked as a school nurse, and so she knows a lot about type 1 and then the school nurse side of it as well. So I'm really excited to kind of unpack all these different issues that kids have when they're at school with their diabetes. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about is how to prepare your child for school at the beginning of the school year, what to talk about with the staff, and what would you say the first step would be for a child with diabetes starting school?
Well, I think those first few days of school, administration, teachers are having their meetings, back to school meetings, getting staff updates, and anything you can do those first few weeks before that first day to get in, have a meeting with the principal, and ideally the teacher as well before that first day of school where things can be kind of chaotic, and
Sure.
be able to present to them really the immediate needs and what you would like to have provided, so that very first day we do everything we can to be sure it's a safe environment, and then be able to schedule a time to really have a more formalized meeting of kind of more of the year-long plan and discuss field trips. Anything
good.
you can do to kind of set the stage that it doesn't start out with an immediate adversarial situation when something it's missing, or misunderstandings that right from the get-go that you kind of start establishing some relationships with administration and the teacher for that year.
That's really good advice, because you're on the same side, you're on the same team, and to approach it that way is a great way to start off the year. As a child, my mom would always go into the classroom. I've been type 1 for well over 30 years, and she would always go in the classroom and talk about diabetes, and I finally kicked her out about 7th grade. I said, I got this, Mom. But now Lilly Diabetes has a really great tool, and it's this really sweet book with Mickey Mouse, so it's kid friendly, and it's called Coco Goes Back to School. And Coco is a monkey, and she has been recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and this is her first time back at school with diabetes. And it talks about in the classroom, the questions that the kid asks, can you have snacks, can you have recess, and it's a really cute story for a parent or even the child, if they're old enough, to read in front of their class, and then open that discussion for other kids to ask these questions, and so they can all be educated. And also I think it's safeguarding the child in the classroom too. So if they do start having these warning signs, or the children know the warning signs, so if they start having a low and the child may not be able to articulate that the friends can say, hey, I remember in that story Coco was talking about being low, or it's just a nice tool. And so if our viewers want a copy of this, please contact me below. You can contact Lilly directly as well. It's just such a great resource, and we'd love to help you out as well. My email is below. You can email me directly. Kristen, what are some other tools at the beginning of the school year that would be helpful?
Well, I think for any parent, I think it's a very good idea to actually Google the California State Education Code. Type in insulin, diabetes care, so that you come to those first meetings having a clear understanding of the restrictions that the administration and staff may have to follow through with some wishes. There's always parts to negotiate, but unfortunately the education code takes many years and money to change any word in any sentence, and so they are oftentimes 10 years or more behind really even the technology and things like that. So part of the code is, that your standing orders from your physician that needs to be on campus has very specific, the exact time, the exact dose of a particular medication.
Sure.
And after leaving school nursing and starting to work here at the Research Institute, I really got so much more of an understanding of how every day is a different day for every student, and really having that rigid requirement of, we know exactly what dose of insulin on every day. Not only does it depend on how their night before was or their weekend, but also, is it a PE day?
Right, there's all these different elements.
Is it a music day where maybe their lunch is a little bit farther away than what it's usually set? And so for a parent to be able to come in and be aware of the fact that, there's some negotiating of how do we be sure that, your student is safe, and talking about the usual school day and what happens on off times or field trips.
Right.
Sometimes, teachers have a little bit of flexibility of when they're going to set those field trips. Like 4th grade is real big on California history, so they're going zip-zapping all over different field trips. Maybe those could be scheduled in advance on a day that one of the parents know they are available, so that there is less conflict in advance. Maybe it's a family that just absolutely is not able to do that. So talk about that in September, and so everyone can start strategizing, is there a school nurse at another district that maybe she comes on Thursdays every week, but that could be a day that she could adjust her schedule.
Right.
The 504 plan is essentially a legal document that provides some structure to providing accommodations for a student that has a health impairment that is identified as something that is affecting their ability to learn, and that they may need some additional accommodations. So that could be someone with a child with migraine headaches, or sometimes it's temporary where they have a more chronic illness that, like getting cancer treatment. Diabetes does fall under that category, that this is a student who may need additional time for absences for doctor's appointments, for sick days, that if they are having a very high blood sugar, their ability to learn is definitely impacted. Again, there are times during your child's lifetime in school that it may seem unnecessary to sit and have these kind of meetings, but I think they're very important to start early, so that you've got some structure in place of an opportunity to sit down with not only the teacher for that year, but the principal. It also gives you an opportunity to talk about how often that you would feel comfortable reconvening for that. And sometimes those accommodations may need to change early on if your child has not learned how to administer insulin on their own. Education does code requires that a licensed person administer that insulin, or a staff member who volunteers to learn those things, meaning that that particular teacher is not mandated by any law that they are the one to learn that. And so, making those agreements ahead of time. The reason administration needs to be there is, financially, if there's going to be an impact, they need to be involved in the decision making. And then as the student progresses and gets more and more independent, there may be other things that may need to happen, such as in middle school, when they start getting a little more uncomfortable, possibly stepping out on their own, or there's more restrictions on bathroom breaks or snacks and things like that in the classroom, that it kind of takes the onus off the student who may not feel as comfortable advocating for themselves. And so oftentimes at that age, I would always like to have the student actually in the meeting as well, so that they were able to advocate their needs, and know that that everyone involved is aware of when they need to step out, or if they'd like to go ahead and test their own blood sugar in the classroom, to make sure that we do everything possible to make their lives as independent as quickly as possible too. It's not a requirement, and there are definitely families that choose to have just informal check-ins with their teacher, and I think that that's more common in the lower grades where there's more family involvement and at the school setting. But I think where I see it as an important place to start is it gives the student the impression that this is a serious situation, that they need to be vocal and feel comfortable talking to others about their diabetes, where their emergency supplies are, and allow that student to participate in those meetings as soon as possible. Same thing with anything that you can do to help get your child more independent. I know as a mother it's so much easier to reach in and do things for them. But anything we can do to help with that independence, that confidence, that it's okay to talk to others about what their needs are that may be different than their friends in class. And also, as you get older into that junior high level and high school, when you're getting more involved in sports and things like that, to be able to start getting more confidence talking to your coach, letting, you've got 6 teachers instead of just one. Those kind of things where different personalities may come into play. Administrators sometimes, are there for 1 year, a new one the next year. That if you have that structure already there, you can quickly move to just being able to just communicate and talk through it, rather than starting with 0 and trying to, suddenly throw that together when there's really more possibly a pressing need or a change in the environment at school. I think that's really important. I think that as far as tools, there are families now that have the CGM, that they're able to communicate with that. The parent is aware of what's going on. I think that as anything you can do to get that comfort level, to be able to not feel like you have to step out of whatever environment you're in to be able to take care of what you need. Starting to be more independent in keeping your supplies, a fanny pack for PE or field trips, things like that. That you're able to start, working towards that. That's always the goal, is to add more independence for them. I also know that there's some high schools that do little buddy meetings that they may not necessarily, have a class together, but just once a month having a lunch group, things like that, I think is always great. And here, of course, during our research studies, having the kids meet each other, they may be from different schools, the parents get a chance to meet, but anything they can do to find a little more connection with the community, so that they feel a little more comfortable advocating for themselves.
Kristen, thank you so much. All of these tools are so helpful for knowing how to navigate this inclusive education. The state of California really backs type 1 diabetics in that inclusive education and getting everyone on the same page with that. I really like what you said about working with your doctor too as the first step of getting that diabetes management plan in place to then present it, and so everyone knows that those orders are clear and there's no confusion there. And so I think our goal is to support parents in taking the fear out of sending their child to school, that they will be safe, that they can do all of the things that the other students do with proper accommodations. And it's so great to hear that and to see that. We have a lot of programs, as Kristen was mentioning, about getting connected in the community. Below you can see the links on our website to all of our programs, to get involved, to really connect with the other students and to help one another out. That's our goal too, is to build the diabetes community here in Santa Barbara. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you.